focusing right on top, Nepal's protests. Never seen before like protests in Nepal, where Gen Z youngsters between the age groups of 19 to 25 all hitting the streets and protesting against the government for banning social media platforms. That's now turned into an uprising wanting the KP Sharma Oli government completely ousted. We will delve into that with our top panelists on board. And of course, deep diving into the H-1B visa clampdown, along with third country visa application allowance that India had and enjoyed has now been fully banned. America now no more encourages Indians to apply for American visa in any form, tourist or business, from a third country. If you're Indian, you've got to apply in India. Only means much longer wait time, maybe up to 9 months. And finally, we will take you through Shashi Tharoor, the Congress MP who is now backing the SIR. You have his leader Rahul Gandhi championing a rally in Bihar and slamming the SIR drive, the Election Commission's drive to weed out duplicates and fake voters. Shashi Tharoor says it's the need of the hour, backing it. As always, the headlines first. 19 killed in Nepal as Gen Z protests have really taken a violent turn. Police using live fire, tear gas shells to disperse crowds. One journalist shot. Demonstrations only erupting nationwide. We hear the Home Minister of Nepal has now resigned owing to multiple deaths in a single day. Supreme Court allows Aadhaar as valid proof for Bihar electoral roll revision. Clarifies Aadhaar is not proof of citizenship. ECI can verify document authenticity. The BJD and the BRS to abstain in vice presidential poll, while RJD cites concerns of remaining neutral. The BRS says that it was over the unmet demand of supplying urea to Telangana farmed by neither of the parties. Decision seen to indirectly favor NDA candidate, says the BJP. Top LET terrorist Rahman Bai among 2 killed in Kolgam encounter. 3 soldiers injured as Army, Jammu and Kashmir Police and the CRPF launch a joint operation in Gudar forest. Karnataka's BJP delegation, led by State President B.Y. Vijayendra, to be meeting with the Union Home Minister Amit Shah, seeking a high-level probe into communal violence during the Ganesh idol immersion in Mandya. In fact, huge protests that broke out. Hindu Jagran Vedike groups calling for a bandh, Maddur bandh, tomorrow after stone pelting incident during Ganesh Chaturthi celebration. The Hindu Jagran Vedike will carry out Chamundi Hill Padayatra tomorrow, opposing International Booker Prize winner Banu Mushtaq, inaugurating the Dashera festival. The outfit says they will go ahead with the Padayatra despite police restrictions opposing Banu Mushtaq's participation as a guest. Kerala sees 5th death from rare brain infection. 56-year-old woman dies in Kozhikode, 11 others under treatment for this amoebic meningoencephalitis, a brain-eating disease that's gripped Kerala. Multiple deaths being reported, in the latest a 56-year-old woman. Chinese ambassador to India, Xu Fihong, slams US tariffs on India, calling them unfair and unreasonable, invites Indian companies to invest in China, urges fair business climate. Jerusalem bus stop massacre. 6 people have been killed, 11 injured in the deadliest attack in years in Jerusalem. 2 Palestinian gunmen opened fire at Ramot Junction. Netanyahu, they're vowing crackdown. Hamas claims responsibility. All right, let me start with what's happening in Nepal. Yet another of India's neighbor now looking in doldrums. Nepal in complete turmoil. Nepal is seeing what many are calling a Gen Z uprising, with thousands of young citizens, all mostly born between 1995 and 2010, which is why it's called the Gen Z protests, are flooding the streets in Nepal. Their anger first erupted over the Oli government's sudden ban on 26 social media platforms. including Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and X among them, claiming that they haven't registered with the government and haven't complied with government set protocols. Now, these sites are quite important to Nepalis. As we hear, millions of Nepalis depend on these sites, not just to express, of course, but also for their work and business. They have business accounts registered with these platforms. Business was running thanks to these platforms. Now that Nepal government, what really the government did not expect here was that this ban on these social media platforms would really threaten their own position. What began as a protest against this ban has now spiraled into a much bigger movement in Nepal, an uprising against the government altogether, raising issues of corruption, of censorship, of course, of nepotism, and calling this government an authoritarian regime. The unrest in Nepal has turned quite bloody as protesters stormed the parliament in Kathmandu. Police have opened fire with rubber bullets, in fact tear gas shells, even live rounds of firing, left nearly 19 of them dead. We hear one journalist also was shot at. Curfew now in place across Baneshwar of Nepal and Singadurbar, Narayan Hiti and other key zones. We're looking at complete curfew. Groups are not allowed to congregate, but yet you see these youngsters fearless out on the streets, ready to protest. They say today we won. What we wanted was a change, and we will ensure this change is brought in. And that's the violent protests there, which cops are trying hard to contain. But we hear that the Home Minister of Nepal has now resigned, as many people have died in the protest. Clearly, the government could not contain it. Student leaders claim that there are also vested interest groups that are trying to infiltrate and provoking some of the students or youngsters there. But nonetheless, they do reiterate that they want change, and this is possibly the opening to a new day. That's what some of the protesters say. In fact, one of them was heard saying, when leaders' sons and daughters have bright futures, where is our bright future? Basically now raising a host of other issues like corruption and nepotism. The youngsters in Nepal are furious, and they're making no qualms in expressing it. Nepal's Home Minister Ramesh Lekhak has tendered his resignation in a special and urgent meeting that was organized by KP Sharma Ole, a cabinet meeting that was held in Baluwatar, where the Home Minister has finally resigned after 19 people have died. Now, Ole's government insists that they do respect freedom of expression, but they also argue that platforms like YouTube, X, Meta, all have to comply with government rules, and they have to register with the government locally and appoint grievance officers, which they claim these platforms haven't done. In fact, this was ordered by Nepal's Supreme Court, and yet these platforms have not abided by it. We hear TikTok, Viber and other platforms have complied except for Meta, YouTube and X. Now, adding fuel to this protest was the former King Gyanendra, his rare public appearance that happened earlier this year, where he called for the monarchy's return and also the revival of a Hindu Rashtra, and his words really echoed. Now that has also echoed during these protests. So after Bangladesh is another of India's neighbors heading for political upheaval, and what would Nepal's unrest really mean for India? Joining me tonight to discuss a little more on this is Ambassador Virendra Gupta, former Indian diplomat. We also have Khushbu Oli, member of the Rashtriya Prajatantra Party, live from Nepal, Kathmandu. We also have Surendra Phuyal, who's a journalist, joining us again live from Kathmandu, Nepal. Let me quickly go into Khushbu Oli to give us a sense. Khushbu, we're sorry to see what we're seeing. 19 people have died. One journalist was shot at. Do you believe this was the best and possible way for the Oli Sharma government to have dealt with protesters as young as Gen Z that they are?
The government has always failed to address the public grievances, inefficiency in implementing policies, and promoting nepotism and eroding public trust and flooding the country with corruption. So, and additionally, his authoritarian approach and concentration of power alienated political allies have fueled, this movement, whatever has happened today. And it's unfortunate. 19 young people have died, and we never expected it to go like that. Even my kids were there out on the streets, and we did not expect the government to shoot at them and be so brutal. And the Zen generation in Kathmandu had taken to street against actually the government's ban on the social media and their failures in corruptions, misgovernance, and disregard for the voices of the youths. So, the youngsters were facing with continuous threats to their education, what's going to happen in their employment and future opportunities. And at that time, suddenly when social media was banned, I think this protest is not just anger. It is an awareness and a demand for like a sustainable change and accountable governance in the country. So, while the government has claimed that the restrictions on social media claiming to maintain order, it's ironic and questionable that if it was so important for the government, if the Supreme Court had given orders, then why was the Prime Minister's office using it? Why were all these politicians using it through other sources? Why were they using it through VPN if Nepali public was supposed to not use it? Why were they given this privilege? So I think this has all further pushed the youth to the streets, demanding the answers. And it was,
Khushbu, but we hear some of the protesters also have admitted that there are vested interests who've infiltrated and tarnished the protests. There could be some elements who are trying to discredit us and making this even uglier. Do you believe that there are vested interests? Is this more than just about the social media ban? Is this a way to oust the current KP Sharma Oli regime?
No, I think it's not against the KP. It was not, the infiltration was not done by to get the KP Sharma Oli government out of the government, the party out of the government. Rather, it was the political party, I think, or the government. It could be because they are used to having infiltrators and vigilantes, were deployed earlier also when RPP was in protest. They were also deployed at that time. So I believe because the youths were demanding for and absolutely clear for a protest against the social media ban and rampant corruption, they said that they would maintain peace, do it peacefully, not engaging in any violence, and respect the public property. So these people were unarmed, yet state used so much forces, and the situation escalated so fast, quickly, that in 4 hours of time, the police was shooting not just rubber bullets, actually from the armed weapons they were shooting, not just rubber bullets. So it was quite shocking for us, like how did this happen in such a short period of time? Because we have seen bigger demonstrations like this, bigger protests like this, when even the monarch was, removed. At that time also, until 6 days, I don't think there were any armed or ammunitions used against the public. But today, they were all kids, young kids, like kids from 16 years old, and the government choose to be so brutal and cruel with unarmed people. So I definitely feel they wanted to discredit this movement. The government itself wanted to question their credibility by terming these protesters as chaotic. So I think it was infiltrated, but not from somebody else, but from the government.
Mm-hmm. My question here is, speaking about social media ban, it's very tricky for any government to go forward with a ban, but there are two aspects to it. On one aspect, you're looking at the platforms not complying to your own country's rules. Every country has rules. India has its own rules. Each land, the companies coming in have to abide by it. And there are certain protocols. You've got to register. You've got to have a grievance officer. It's no different in India. These social media giants have complied in India. Why do you think they're not complying in Nepal?
So we do believe that they need to comply, but the government at this point of time cannot wash it by hiding behind the Supreme Court's order. Courts give judgments, but it's the government's duty to implement them with responsibility, sensibility, and accountability. Because social media is not just entertainment in Nepal.
How do you reckon one can implement it without a ban? If they have not lived up to the deadline, if there was a deadline given, these social media giants have not complied to the deadline, was there a more diplomatic way to have dealt with it?
Yes, definitely. They should have dealt it more diplomatically because Nepal being a smaller market for them, we could expect they could take a longer time. But the approach was wrong. We were just given 1 week of time to understand that this ban is going to happen. Now there are 70 lakhs of Nepali people who are working abroad in Gulf countries and India, countries like India and Gulf countries, and their parents are here and they are not used to this. They suddenly, when this was implemented, the ban was implemented, I think they one major factor was that these communications was completely lost. And social media here in Nepal is not just entertainment, it is a vital source of income, it's a medium of education, it's a medium of professional work. So we just believe that the government, when the social media bill is in the parliament, it's under parliamentary review, what was the need to do it so quickly and without prior preparations? And let me tell you one more thing, why the youths are frustrated, because they don't believe that this is the real reason behind this ban. In Nepal, if you see, these leaders were fearing the political literacy that was coming and the awareness that was coming through social media amongst the citizens, and they wanted to control the narrative because the public was getting so negative towards the government and some leaders. I think one way we can agree that they wanted to limit what can be published and suppress any criticism or negative coverage about themselves. So in short, I think it was not merely just about the law or registration. It was more about consolidating power, silencing the dissent, and restricting the people's right to information and expression. They could have done it, they could have given us a longer time, because for people who are living in the rurals of India, they do not know what VPN is, they do not know what the ban is, they completely lost communication and connectivity. And I think government should also be empathetic, because these people are sending, their families are sending remittance to this country is running, and that the economy is based on the remittance. So I think we should have been more respectful on this.
Very interesting. I mean, from the sense I get here, a lot of Nepalis used Instagram, Meta platforms like Facebook, Instagram to actually communicate with your loved ones living abroad. And if your economy running largely on foreign remittances, then this could really impact the economy. And much worse, what else do Gen Z do? They're most of the time hooked to social platforms. If you're taking that off from them, then you could only see these protests turning more violent, and that's what we fear. A final word, Ms. Oli, your take on where this is going to turn. Is there an end to this? We hear your Home Minister has resigned.
Yes, the Home Minister has resigned, but that's not enough, because their hands are now, the government's hands are soaked in blood of 19 young children. Like, my children came back home, but 19 children are not coming back home, and there could be more, because I was at the hospital where these casualties were treated right now, and the scenario looks much more terrible, and numbers could definitely increase by the morning. So, this injustice has sparked a nationwide awakening, and citizens
So you will settle with nothing less than the government's ouster?
Sorry?
You will settle with nothing less than the government to go?
Yes, because they have lost the legitimacy at the moment. But at this prime time, I think it is important to take care of the victims and to handle the situation properly. It's not just about, if this government goes, there's somebody else going to come in power. So it's not about who is coming, what's happening, but definitely dissolving this government is important, because they've lost their all integrity and legitimacy. So it has, awakened the nation. And we believe that this will definitely not end here, not end tonight. And citizens across the country are now standing up against these leaders, corrupt leaders, demanding accountability. They have to be held accountable.
Just an angle that's also coming alive at this point is former King Gyanedra's recent appearance and calls for a Hindu Rashtra. We hear some of those demands are also echoing during these protests.
In this event, I would not like to politicize, because it was children, youth who wanted to do on their terms, on their beliefs. Definitely there were people who believed in democracy. Definitely there were children who believed in the monarch or something like that. So it was a mix of children, but completely non-political movement. It was about, the first time this generation was understanding the importance of fair politics, transparency, good governance, and they wanted this to be their movement. So it was people from all backgrounds, everywhere, but they had clearly stated that we do not need any political party or political agendas. We just have two agendas. One is lifting the ban on social media, and next would be, end of corruption. And so it was just youngsters trying to understand politics and trying to have a say in Nepal. So I think we should not politicize the movement.
Okay, so you say this is entirely on the government to have turned this around to be violent, while innocent children were protesting the ban on social media platforms, which they call a curb on free speech. Let me bring in our diplomat on the panel here, Sir Ambassador Virendra Gupta. As a diplomat that you've served, how do you see these protests in Nepal having an impact on India? I'm not too sure if there's a direct correlation, but what I can see here is that this is what can happen if one government bans social media platforms. You have most of the youngsters today addicted to it. Forget Gen Z, millennials. What are they going to do if there's a ban? Come out on the streets and protest. So this is dangerous. Yeah, go on, sir.
Well, I fully empathize with what Khushbu has said. Government has been caught on the wrong foot. Firstly, I think it was very knee-jerk reaction for them to have banned the entire spectrum of social media platforms. Now, if you look at it yourself, if I look at myself, how much of the social media we are using, certainly youngsters depend a lot on these platforms. And to ban the entire spectrum, I think is literally shutting the life on them. And I think they would be very resentful. This protest is totally unprecedented. Of course, they draw inspiration from the fact that similar uprisings have taken place for different reasons, of course, in Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. So I think the youth realize their power. But the most important thing is their protest. They were peaceful protests. Government not only did the wrong thing in totally knee-jerk reaction and banning the entire spectrum of the social media platforms, and then they came back with a disproportionate response. And what was to be a very peaceful protest turned into a violent protest, and we are very concerned. About 20 people have died. You asked me what is India. We don't have a direct connection with this protest, but certainly we watch what's happening in our neighborhood, and we are very deeply concerned about the welfare, the well-being of people in our neighboring country, a friendly country, Nepal. So I think the underlying reasons which have now come to the fore. Nepal has battled with the governance issues, corruption, all of that in the last several years. And what the protest began as something against the shutting out of the social media platforms, but now have taken a larger shape.
Yeah, but do you believe that regulatory, these platforms need to basically follow local guidelines as they have in India? They haven't done it in Nepal.
No, the government's stand is all right, but they have to graduate their response. You can't suddenly shut out the entire spectrum. And just think of what the people would do. Even normal people, forget the millennials, forget the Gen Z, young people, almost everybody. Today, if the social media platform, if WhatsApp is shut out, if the Instagram is shut out, if Twitter is shut out, if YouTube is not available, we feel very totally disoriented, because our life revolves around it. And I think the government should have understood that before taking a very extreme step. I agree with Khushbu.
What is India's equation with the current regime, sir? What is India's equation with the current KP Sharma Oli regime?
Well, KP Sharma Oli's relationship with India has been somewhat checkered. He's moved on, hot and cold. But I think the policy that Government of India has rightly adopted, that the government will deal with the current government, whoever is the government, whichever is the government in Nepal. And we are prepared to provide all kinds of support. We have a very strong people-to-people friendship and government-to-government cooperation that has existed, ever since I can remember. So I think we have a huge stake. We have I would say, vested interest in ensuring that there is peace and harmony, and there is well-being of people in Nepal, overall well-being. So I think this development is of very great concern to us.
All right. Well, it almost seems like a generational revolt. Surendra Puyal, you're joining us live from Kathmandu. Would you give us a sense of the mood on the ground? You have 19 people who've died. Do the Gen Z insist on pursuing these protests?
It was not supposed to be this way. I mean, it was supposed to be peaceful protests, which started with youngsters gathering in the heart of Kathmandu at a place called Maitikar Mandala, and then they were draped in national flags, and then they were playing, dancing to Nepali national songs. But then suddenly, the crowd just swelled and kept swelling. There were thousands and then tens of thousands suddenly. And then by midday, things went haywire, and then there were people climbing up the walls of Simha, which is the central secretariat, the seat of the government, all the ministries. And then a few kilometers away, there were others who were climbing up the walls of the parliament complex, and then police began by shooting tear gas at them, and then later rubber bullets and whatnot, and things turned terribly violent. Nobody expected this to be this bad. It was supposed to be peaceful, nice, because when they said Gen Z, it's not there was not even a leader, to stand for, to address the crowd. Sorry. And then there were the government officials are just saying that there were intrusions from all quarters, all kinds of vested interest groups, and then on the eve of the protest, there were warnings of solidarity, extending solidarity. There was a competition among opposition leaders to extend solidarity, including Kathmandu mayor, one leader from RPP, the Rashtriya Prajatantra Party, the pro-monarchy party, and then there were others too, the former Maoist party, now in the opposition. So there were infiltrations. That's what the government spokesperson is saying now. And then, unfortunately, on a day of marked by extreme violence and repression, clearly from the government, several people, more than 300 are injured and lying in hospitals.
My limited question here is the current regime going to revoke the ban? Will that pacify sentiments at this point?
According to reports, in the cabinet meeting, the idea was floated, but then the Prime Minister flatly rejected the idea. He wanted to stick to his guns, and he wanted to continue, making these tech companies liable for what they have not done, what they are supposed to do. So, all these things are there, and then the next 24 hours.
Then it appears that the current regime is now fearing revoking the ban, because now if social media platforms are opened up, you can have more communication, and the protests could only escalate. Khushbu, do you reckon?
Yes, it will definitely escalate. People are already using, substitutes media platforms to engage, to communicate. And as he said, the Prime Minister has chosen to stick to his decision not to lift the curb on social media, and he has still said that it's about the integrity of the country. The first integrity of a Prime Minister is to protect the lives of its citizens. So I think he should stop using these excuses at this point of time, and he should more be empathetic towards the families, towards the public, and towards the children who've lost their lives.
Okay, well, from what we see here, it seems like a generational revolt altogether, because you have protesters largely under the age of 30 who are out on the streets, and the regime not showing any empathy or sympathy. Straight out firing, 19 people have died, a journalist was shot at, the Home Minister has resigned, but it seems like the KP Sharma Oli regime has no mood at this point to revoke the ban on their social media platforms. But one thing's clear, if social media is banned in a country, you could see a situation like this. This is India's neighboring country. Sadly, after Bangladesh, we're looking at Nepal going this way. Not something that India is pleased with. Our neighboring countries like this, after Bangladesh, now Nepal. Virendra Gupta, Ambassador, a quick and final take on seeing our neighbors really go into such turmoil is just sad, and not too sure if there's an impact inadvertently on India, but just your take on this. Post Bangladesh, we are looking at Nepal's youth on the streets like this.
Well, in different countries, it has happened for different reasons. In Sri Lanka, it was for economic reasons. Bangladesh was totally, vested political interests, the radical fundamentalist Islamic elements. Here it is different. And I think during the debate, you raised the issue of the royalists, King Gyanedra's address and whatever. I don't think people in Nepal, particularly the youngsters, are ready, or do they have any appetite for returning to monarchy. So I know that there are people connected with the monarchy, apologists for the royalty, who would want to foment trouble. Now, in muddy waters, everybody wants to create trouble. Certain political opponents, and surely the people close to, or people favoring the return of monarchy would try to foment trouble. But I think people of Nepal have soundedly rejected monarchy. From our point of view also,
so this
monarchy
has
never
very little of a role to play in these protests, in your view.
Exactly.
Right.
So I think monarchy is not going to happen. I'm hopeful that this protest will subside, but government will have to take a more broader attitude. Rejecting the people's demand, students' demand out of hand may not be the right approach.
Yeah, and certainly
I think
not
some
the
accommodation
wisest.
will have to,
Surely.
some accommodation will have to go to that.
I really appreciate all of you for joining us, Ambassador Virendra Gupta, Khushbu Oli and Surendra Puyal for speaking to News9. Of course, we will continue tracking this very closely. A quick break. We'll be right back with our top story on US visas. Now a lot more wait time for Indians. We tell you why on the other side with our panelists. Stay with us.
ब्यूटीफुल
18th सेंचुरी और अभी तक चल रही है।
ज्यादा नहीं चलेगी।
कुछ का
प्रोमिनेंस नहीं,
प्रोमिनेंस।
वाओ, ओरिजिनल।
या स्पेन से लाए थे।
वहीं छोड़ा थे। प्रोमिनेंस नहीं है ना?
प्रोमिनेंस?
मैं कहना चाह रहा था कि प्रोमिनेंस नहीं है।
प्रोमिनेंस मतलब?
प्रोमिनेंस विंडोज, इसमें है हाईएस्ट वेदर रेजिस्टेंस और घर को रखे सेफ फ्रॉम टर्माइट, सीपेज, डस्ट एंड नॉइस। प्रोमिनेंस फॉर द वर्ल्ड यू डिजर्व।
This is nothing. My Skoda is 5 stars. तेरे को पता है मेरी Skoda ना ऑटोमेटिक है और वो भी 7 speed. My Skoda can fly to Jupiter like a rocket.
Skoda.
The power of Digi-Alkaline from Nippo Thor.
बेस्ट है सर।
पर नया क्यों?
Architect जी, something special for you. बिरला ओपस अश्योरेंस देने के लिए।
ऐसा क्या है इसमें?
इसमें है एडवांस्ड क्वालिटी। 1 साल में पेंट को कुछ भी हुआ तो पेंटिंग वापस करके देंगे।
वापस करके देंगे। वापस करके देंगे।
वो भी फ्री। क्वालिटी पे इतना कॉन्फिडेंस, इसीलिए बिरला ओपस अश्योरेंस। रजिस्टर करो birlaopus.com पर।
साइड लॉयर शर्मा जी ने अपने दीवारों पर जेके मैक्स पेंट्स क्या लगवाया? अजीब अजीब बहाने लेकर आने लगे पड़ोसी उनका घर देखने।
हाय शर्मा जी, एक रील बना लूं उस ब्यूटीफुल सी वॉल के पास।
गलती से ना टोमेटो ऐप पे आपका एड्रेस डाल दिया, बस खाना आता ही होगा।
तुम भी टेस्ट कर सकते हो और हम तो खा चुके हैं।
मुझे गर्मा गर्म पकौड़े आपके लिए।
ऑनलाइन इंटरव्यू है, अंदर कर लो प्लीज।
जेके मैक्स पेंट्स, खुशियों के रंग।
Welcome back. Let me cut across to the United States, making it a lot more difficult for Indians now to obtain US visa of any form. Getting a US visa just got a lot more tougher for Indians. The US State Department has announced that non-immigrant visa applicants must now book their interview only in their country of residence. For Indians, that means applicants can only be scheduled, appointments can only be scheduled in India and nowhere else. So third country applications fully banned. Earlier, many Indians would apply in countries like Thailand and Singapore to get a faster visa appointment date because India had long waiting periods. This happened roughly around the time of COVID. That option is now fully closed by the United States. So if you try booking outside India, then your application will be harder to qualify, your fees won't be refunded, and your appointment may even be blocked. The only exceptions here are for diplomats, for NATO staff, and rare humanitarian or emergency cases. So how long is this wait now going to be? Just a rough idea. The average wait time for a tourist or a business visa is about 4.5 months, 4.5 months in Delhi, 9 months in Chennai, 3.5 months in Hyderabad, 5 months in Kolkata, 3.5 months in Mumbai. Student and exchange visas are slightly faster, roughly around 2 months that it would take. Well, this change is aimed at preventing visa shopping across borders, which had started during COVID when India faced huge backlogs. So people would go to third countries to apply for US visa and they got it much faster. But now for most Indians, it means waiting months for appointments because you'll have to do it from India alone. At the same time, we're also looking at the Trump administration now tightening rules on work visas and green cards. H-1B visas may soon follow a wage-based system, which means people who have higher wages, or rather are paid higher, are more likely to get a H-1B visa as opposed to those with lower wages. Green card and citizenship applicants face stricter checks. Now we hear to get a green card, you may have to go through some testimonies from your neighbors. The US administration now decides to get in touch with your neighbors to see how good you are as a neighbor, and based on that would likely grant your green card. Also, the popular Dropbox interview waiver for many travelers has also ended. Bottom line here is that be it tourism, studies, work visas, H-1B, which Indians are claimants to, a large portion of it, it seems like US is making it a lot more tougher for Indians and foreigners by and large to get visas to the United States. Basically, the aim is to ensure American jobs are secure and to push American talent further. But is it even possible? Is America used to it? Can they do without Indians? Joining me to discuss a little more is Ambassador Yogesh Gupta, former Indian diplomat, also Patikrit Pine, who joins us, foreign affairs expert. Thank you both of you for speaking to News 9. Let me start with Ambassador Yogesh Gupta. Ambassador, give us a sense of what you see here, restricting visa interviews to applicants' home country. Would you believe that this will really impact relations? Will it deter Indians to actually seek US visa extension, or visitors wanting to visit the United States from India? Do you feel it will deter people from actually going to the United States? How is this going to make life difficult for Indians here and there?
Well, it's a part of the overall approach of the Trump administration taking a harder line towards India because of the overall decline in our relationship. They are not happy with, President Trump is not happy with certain things that Prime Minister Modi did in terms of, that ceasefire issue, or, his invite for him to come to New York, come to Washington from Canada after that G7 meeting. So basically, that old unpleasantness that is lingering on, and since we have refused to make any concessions on this Russian oil issue, the Americans are trying to make things more unpleasant to us on the issue of visas, on the issue of green cards. You just had the discussion in Nepal, where there is some sort of a CIA-backed coup in progress on the patterns of what happened in Bangladesh and Pakistan. So, US is trying to put more pressure on India, trying to make life difficult for this government in India, so that it is pressurized from various sources. So I see it more in terms of geopolitics, more in terms of US unhappiness with this government.
Okay. Well, it's just so unfair, Patrikrit, if this is true that it is Trump's ego being bruised and that he's sort of piling up on Indians by limiting H-1B visas, and importantly now cancelling third-party visa applications or third-country visa applications for Indians. Do you believe this was anyway coming? Nothing surprising? They allowed for third-party applicants during COVID, but it seems like it's now come to a grinding halt, which would mean that almost a 9-month wait for some applicants waiting for a US visa.
Good evening. Yeah, so I think first and foremost, see, these are policy decisions. I think, the Americans can turn back and say, look, this is a universal policy. We are doing it for everyone and not just for the Indians. But it is a reality that a large number of Indians actually take the B1 and the B2 visa, which are temporary visas for tourism or business trips. See, at the end of the day, one thing is pretty clear. So far as the honeymoon of getting visas are concerned in United States at ease, that era is over. So whether, irrespective of whatever happened in the last couple of months, even if that had not happened, the general policy of Trump administration over the last 8-9 months appears to actually project that, they would have done it. And I think the non-immigrant visa is probably more like a low-hanging fruit. Because that does not impact much of the IT, workers who actually go there to work. These are mostly temporary visas. And I think there was a loophole that was being used, so they will turn back and say, look, I have done it for everyone. It's my policy decision. There are two things I want to say. You asked whether it's going to improve working opportunities for Americans. Well, that will not happen. First and foremost, a large number of Indian students who go there or tourists to go there or for short-term business visas, they do actually generate a lot of revenues for the American economy. The number of students who go over there, they spend nothing less than $20 to $25 billion annually. So if the Trump administration is okay with losing that kind of revenue, then it's their choice. Secondly, when it comes to creating more jobs in the United States, I don't know how by restricting tourists or business visitors who actually go and, stay in hotels and eat out food and buy and do shopping for back home. Or how restricting students and business visitors help America. Third, if it is about restricting the number of people who can get jobs in the United States, well, let me put it this way. The United States is not a country where you can produce for the rest of the world. The cost of production of a good or service is far higher than what it is elsewhere. That is the reason companies of the United States outsource elsewhere else. So if Trump has to bring back jobs into United States, the first and the only thing that he has to do, which he will not do, is to devalue the dollar as a currency. Everything else is a hogwash for a short-term growth. Otherwise, it is not going to help them in terms of bringing jobs. And if for the sake of these things, India should have buttered his ego, opened up the market, stopped taking oil from Russia, well, that is not something any sensible government would do. I think visas, temporary visa, is not something which an Indian or any government will be a priority for them. That for this sake, so that they don't do this, I will open up my market, which engages the livelihood of say 15 crore people. So I think for these things are issues which would have happened. It is ultimately the American economy which will have to bear the brunt. The choice is theirs. Back to you.
Trump says that we want to encourage American talent and push for America's American jobs to be secure. But the worry is for them, of course for us also, but for them more. Do they have competent talent?
Nabila, let me tell you one thing. If you manufacture an Apple iPhone in United States, it's going to cost them nothing less than $3,500 to $4,000 compared to perhaps $800 for which they manufacture in China or India. Now, if you manufacture an Apple iPhone in $4,000, do you really think they can sell it across the world? Secondly, the kind of effort the IT services guys who do, of Indian origin put in, working probably 10 to 12 hours, waking up throughout the night. Do you think the American psyche is there that they will work like that, slog it when it becomes necessary, they will stay back in the office for days on? You think that mentality is there in the United States? Secondly, programming is something which is inherent, quality. It doesn't come in one day. You can't teach another country how to make semiconductors as Taiwan generally does it, because it is embedded in their innovative culture. Same with programming when it comes to Indians. So I think this takes generations to develop. It doesn't happen in one day. Trump suddenly cannot one day ban all from India and tomorrow all the IT jobs get shifted to America, because the pushback will come from Wall Street. Wall Street, which is the investors
and rightly said, just extending that question there to our ambassador, just a quick word on Trump tariffs. We know that the courts in United States have said these tariffs on countries like India are illegal, and if at all the Supreme Court upholds it, then Trump will have to, or the current regime in the United States will have to pay back all the tariffs to these countries, and Trump is already rattled. We hear he's already reaching out, asking the Supreme Court to, in fact, not dismiss his efforts to bring in money into the American economy. So there's another threat there that Trump is facing, that his whole tariff imposition on India and many other countries might just be revoked, deemed as illegal, and they will have to pay all that money back.
Well, Nabila, as you must be knowing, the Supreme Court in the US has judges which are appointed on the basis of political considerations, to which party they owe loyalty. And at present, there is a majority of judges which owe their loyalty to President Trump, appointed by him or favorable to him. So President Trump doesn't expect that the Supreme Court will rule against him.
All right, let's see what happens. But I really appreciate Ambassador Yogesh and Patrikrit for joining us on that. All right, let me cut across to our top story on Day to Night. Now, the Congress camp has been crying foul over the Election Commission's special intensive revision of the electoral rolls. Rahul Gandhi even built his vote chori campaign around it. But now a senior Congress voice has broken ranks. No surprises for guessing, Shashi Tharoor has come out backing the SIR, the revision of the electoral roll, though with a caveat of transparency. Tharoor says the exercise is crucial to fix errors like duplicate entries and names of deceased voters. He does admit that the opposition's fears of disenfranchisement must be addressed, but insists that the way forward is for the Election Commission to keep the process open and above board. Let's listen in.
I think everyone who has participated in elections has known that the electoral rolls are not perfect. There are duplicates, there are dead voters, there are living voters who are not registered, there are people who have moved address and who's got 2 or 3 addresses in 2 or 3 different booths. All of these things have existed, but if it has happened on a very big scale, then it needs to be addressed. I think the Election Commission's best approach should be to confront these matters very openly. Fortunately, nowadays our digital technologies have improved so much. You can develop an algorithm to go through all the voter registrations, flag every duplicate thing, raise certain questions. I think a revision every few years is essential, maybe every year even.
All right. Now, of course, his remarks did stand out weeks after echoing Rahul Gandhi's charge of vote theft. Tharoor is now effectively endorsing the very process that his party has attacked. By supporting the revision, Shashi Tharoor is reinforcing public trust, or that's precisely basically what the BJP says, or is he defying party line for certain reasons? A lot of questions being asked considering Kerala elections are coming closer. Is Shashi Tharoor looking to make a switch? Well, his soft stand for the Modi government at this point has certainly raised eyebrows. All right, a political row is brewing in Delhi, and this time it's all about who sat where. The spotlight is on Chief Minister Rekha Gupta after opposition party Aam Aadmi Party in Delhi has raised eyebrows over Rekha Gupta's husband sitting at a government meeting right beside her. Now, in a viral video, in fact, a social media post, this Aam Aadmi Party leader has questioned this very image here, asking Rekha Gupta about her priorities. Manish Gupta, Rekha Gupta's husband, was present at that meeting that was held in Shalimar Bagh Assembly constituency that has drawn quite a lot of trolls in many different ways. People drawing parallels, cheeky parallels with the popular OTT series Panchayat. Aam Aadmi Party leader asking whether Delhi's governance is now taking cues from Phulera's Panchayat, pointing out that a chair had even been placed next to the Chief Minister for her husband. Of course, the BJP has slammed back Amit Malviya, responding, saying AAP should focus more on substantive issues rather than this, saying that he did not give out any orders and all he was doing was basically supporting her in constituency works, which is not unprecedented. In fact, he quoted leaders like Sheila Dikshit, Arvind Kejriwal, claiming that their family members also often helped the leaders to do their work. Now, former Delhi Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia, though, joining in the fray, taking a dig at Chief Minister Rekha Gupta, saying, is this constitutional rule or husband's rule? Well, many asking whether Delhi Chief Minister's husband, Rekha Gupta's husband Manish Gupta, being part of a non-constitutional meeting. In fact, is it non-constitutional for a non-elected member to be part of a government meeting? Basically, at this point, it's left Rekha Gupta left scurrying for answers. Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge has come under fire, and this time it's not for politics in Delhi but for a viral video from flood-hit Kalaburgi. Mallikarjun Kharge's remarks to a distressed farmer have sparked sharp criticism, with opponents calling this very arrogant and insensitive. In the video, you see veteran Congress leader is seated with an aide when a farmer approaches him with a grievance. The farmer says that his 4-acre crop has been destroyed in floods. Kharge responds to him in a manner that has really left people furious. He says, what about my 40 acres? I've suffered damage and this is the condition of my land as well. It's far worse. He's also heard telling the farmer not to come here for publicity and to instead question the central government about crop losses. Let's listen in.
ನನಗೇನು ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು, ಅದೇನು 6 ಆಡದವಳು ಮುಂದೆ 3 ಆಡದವಳು ಮುಂದೆ ಕೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಆಯ್ತು, ಗೊತ್ತದ, ಪಬ್ಲಿಸಿಟಿ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳಕ್ ಬರಬೇಡ. ನನಗೆ ಇದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತದ. ಹೆಸರು ಹೋಗ್ಯದ, ಉದ್ದು ಹೋಗ್ಯದ, ತೊಗರಿ ಹೋಗ್ಯದ. ಮೋದಿ ಶಾಕ್ ಕೇಳಿ ತೊಗರಿ ಎಷ್ಟು ಎಕರೆ ಬಿತ್ತು.
As expected, you had the opposition lashing out, H.D. Kumaraswamy slamming this, calling Kharge's remarks as arrogant and unbecoming of a senior leader. BJP's B.Y. Vijendra also joining in the attack, saying this has insulted the distressed farmers, and this response reflected the insensitivity and carelessness of the Congress regime. All right, now, viral video has really left the Congress in Bihar embarrassed. In Bihar's flood-ravaged Katihar, thousands are struggling to in fact keep their heads above water. A political storm has erupted after this video showing Congress MP Tariq Anwar being carried on a villager's back during his inspection. An image that's now sparked huge debate on the man being treated in this fashion. While villagers need help, this man is seeking help from his people there, being carried literally by the locals there when he was out on a flood inspection. In fact, he travelled, we hear, by tractor, boat and bike to reach some remote areas, and the claim is that Tariq Anwar says, I felt sick and therefore villagers tried to help me. They were seen carrying the 72-year-old leader on their backs through the waterlogged field. Already enough stress that the locals have that they have to take another man's load on their shoulders and carry him all through the flood-ravaged areas. The Katihar District Congress President has clarified that Tariq Anwar felt dizzy and unwell, which is why he was aided by the villagers. They lifted him out of concern and affection. The police officers and locals are seen supporting the act to ensure his safety. Of course, BJP seizing this opportunity and slamming the Congress, saying VVIP protocols was the need of the hour, even in such a dire situation, if at all this was what the Congress's approach was during a flood hit inspection. In a shocking tragedy that unfolded in Greenfield Colony in Haryana's Faridabad, an AC blast has led to a massive fire that consumed a family of three. 3 people have died because the AC in their house, in fact, we hear it went up in flames. Incident occurred in the wee hours of September 8th. A powerful explosion in the split AC on the first floor of the residence. In fact, Rakesh Malik, that was his house, that the AC exploded, led to a massive fire that killed Sachin Kapoor, his wife Rinku and daughter Sujan Kapoor on the second floor, including their pet dog. And all happened due to suffocation after that blast. Their son Aryanan, who escaped the blast, he remains critical in the ICU. In fact, the Kapoor family were fast asleep when they suddenly woke up engulfed in fiery fumes past midnight. By the time the locals and the fire brigade reached the spot, it was too late, as the house had been fully gutted. Police confirmed that initial findings point to a malfunction in the AC unit, though a forensic team is expected to examine the charred remains of the appliance and the wiring to see how that AC exploded. Residents of Greenfield Colony gathered in large numbers outside the house as the news of the accident spread quickly. The area remained tense. Officials carried out rescue and recovery operations in the early hours of the morning, but a big question remains on how an AC exploded. Right, sad story coming in. Tragedy struck on the outskirts of Jerusalem as 2 gunmen opened fire at a bus stop, killing 6 people, injuring 11 others, one of the deadliest attacks in the city in recent years. According to Israeli police, attackers who claim to be Hamas from West Bank arrived by car at Ramot Junction, opened fire on civilians waiting at the bus stop. Dashcam footage shows terrified people fleeing as bullets tore through bus windows, leaving several victims lying on road and sidewalk. The victims included a 50-year-old man, a woman in her 50s, and 3 men with 6 others in serious condition. Those are the people there. Weapons, ammunition and a knife used by the attackers were recovered. Benjamin Netanyahu, Israeli Prime Minister, has said that he will ensure that justice will be brought. Soldiers have been deployed currently both in Jerusalem and in parts of the West Bank to aid the investigation. Prime Minister Modi condemns the attack, saying India's zero tolerance, reaffirming India's zero tolerance on terrorism. Right, that's it, a wrap for me right here. Thanks very much for watching. Do have a great night.
The power of Digi-Alkaline from Nippo Thor.
Breaking news. Major disruption is expected this week.
Yes, disruption confirmed. That's me. Relax. No scams. No scams. Just my brand new show. News Caustic with Cyrus.
What is to the nines? In literal terms, it's perfection. But to us, it's not just a phrase, it's an attitude. One that starts at your desk and sends a statement to the world. To the Nines is about taking charge. It's a way of life where every seam, every fold, is crafted with excellence. It's timeless elegance and uncompromising quality made for the corner office. It's the ideas that inspire redefining order and elevating the tabletop. To the Nines, for the leaders of today and the visionaries of tomorrow.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News 9, English news as it should be.
Nepal's Home Minister Ramesh Lekhak tenders his resignation on moral grounds after violent Gen Z protests over the social media ban that has left 19 dead and over 340 people injured. Two terrorists and two soldiers succumbed to injuries after an encounter during a joint operation by the Army, the Jammu and Kashmir Police and the CRPF. Prime Minister Modi tells NDA MPs that their vice presidential poll win is certain, but cautioned against even a single invalid vote, saying it could spark needless speculation. Speaking at a virtual BRICS summit, India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar says that the world needs a stable and predictable trade environment, adding that with multiple global crises unfolding, the multilateral system appears to be failing. Supreme Court asks the Election Commission of India to include Aadhaar as the 12th prescribed document for establishing the identity of a voter in the special intensive revision exercise of electoral rolls in election-bound Bihar. After violent clashes in Mandya during Ganesh procession, BJP delegation led by State President V.Y. Vijayendra to meet Home Minister Amit Shah to demand a high-level probe into the incident. Outrage in Bengaluru as BMTC conductor allegedly assaults a passenger for no ticket. Incident during Devanahalli Majestic trip sparks social media fury. Gen Z protesters have pulled off a revolution in Nepal against the KP Sharma Oli government. Taking moral responsibility for the lives lost in these violent protests, Nepal's Home Minister Ramesh Lekhak has officially resigned. He submitted his resignation to Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli during a cabinet meeting. An urgent cabinet meeting is underway at the Prime Minister's residence as the administration scrambles to contain the rapidly deteriorating situation. Protests that were supposed to start as a mega rally at 11 a.m. this morning, but in no time snowballed into an attempt to siege the Nepal parliament. Sea of protesters, many under 28 years of age, were seen climbing parliament walls, entering cordoned off high security zones. The army has been called on to the streets even as the police has been issued shoot at sight orders. At least 19 people have been killed as police opened fire on the Gen Z protesters. The situation took a dangerous turn when protesters stormed the parliament premises in New Baneshwar in Kathmandu. Clashes erupted as demonstrators broke through barricades, climbed over gates and confronted security forces. In response, authorities deployed tear gas and water cannons to disperse the crowd. Amid the escalating violence, the Facebook page Gen Z Nepal, a key platform behind the protests, has issued an urgent appeal for calm urging all demonstrators to return home. The statement reads, "Many groups with selfish interests are inciting the crowd. Our mission for today has been successful. Please leave the area safely and immediately." In a swift move to regain control, the Kathmandu District Administration Office imposed a strict curfew from 12:30 p.m. till 10 p.m. in key areas, as the protests have spilled well beyond Kathmandu to other cities in Nepal. But what are these protests all about? The online protests spilled onto the streets, an anti-government revolution led by the young. Protests steered by under 28-year-olds. Nepal's youth seem outraged by the social media ban that was imposed recently after the KP Sharma Oli government banned 26 social media groups on the 4th of September. Facebook, X, WhatsApp, Instagram, YouTube among those banned. This after social media groups refused the government's vigilance crackdown that wanted social media groups to allow state surveillance on the users of social media in Nepal. Protesters claim that the Oli government's ban targets free speech. And they say the Oli government has been targeting the protests because they are against corruption. News 9's Kartika Sharma spoke to JNU Professor S.D. Muni on how Nepal's protests differ from those in Bangladesh. Listen in.
A lot of people would say, quote unquote, is there a foreign hand? Something, which people spoke about in Bangladesh. So how do you categorize the protests in Kathmandu? Different from Bangladesh?
Well, it is different. It is not because, in Bangladesh, army intervened really to push Hasina out also. Without that, it would not have happened. Nepal's situation is slightly different. I have no doubt that this is not a challenge to democracy in Nepal. I have no doubt about it. But I tell you, as Mr. Puyal has said very rightly, that people would not accept any, shortcut to the solution, that you make a committee or do something or start arrogation in one way or the other. One of the options can be of having an interim arrangement which really looks for the next election. So far as foreign sources are concerned, I think Veena ji said it rightly, and I want to emphasize it, that there are reports, and I have not confirmed, but I have heard it from my Nepali friends talking to them today on phone, that the Soros's open society people are involved there. And as you know, all the social media networks have are stakeholders, and they are all linked to the US. So US government has nothing to do perhaps with it. But you are asking of the foreign influences, it cannot be ruled out. And exactly this situation was there in Sri Lanka and to a very large extent also in Bangladesh. So, these are the hands which are hidden behind it. And students are in a very rebellious. But I think the basic approach should be that the present leadership is not acceptable. And I don't think that they would be able to find any way out of this crisis unless there is a drastic change takes place.
It's being called as the Gen Z protests of Nepal. Protesters, mostly under 28 years of age, marching on the streets of Nepal, laying siege to Nepal's parliament in Kathmandu. Bear in mind, these protests, even as they turn violent in Kathmandu, are spreading across Nepal to other cities like Pokhara and other major cities in Nepal. Vehicles were set on fire during the protests, even as protesters climbed over walls and even pushed back the barricades. Support pouring in for these Gen Z protests. Everybody from the governor of Kathmandu to other celebrities in Nepal backing the Gen Z protests. Bear in mind, the protests have been triggered by the social media ban that was recently imposed by the KP Sharma Oli government, even as there was rising discontent about high rates of corruption in the KP Sharma Oli government in Nepal. High rates of unemployment and serious disillusionment with Nepal's political system, bursting onto the streets with Gen Z's strong protests in Kathmandu today. A peaceful protest, a peaceful rally was what was originally planned, but that mega rally quickly snowballing into violent protests, which has left at least 19 people dead and more than 300 injured. Amid increasing global concerns over Washington's tariff tussle, India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar said that the world is seeking a stable and predictable environment for trade and investment. He further went on to say that economic practices should be fair, transparent, and to everyone's benefit. In an address to a virtual BRICS summit, Jaishankar warned that rising barriers and linking trade measures to non-trade issues would only deepen disruptions. Listen in.
And by the way, most Democrats agree with us. But this is just, we got to bring our country back.
Times of uncertainties. Your Highness, Excellencies, trade patterns and market access are today prominent issues in the global economic discourse. The world requires constructive and cooperative approaches to promote trade that is sustainable. Increasing barriers and complicating transactions will not help. Neither would the linking of trade measures to non-trade matters. The BRICS itself can set an example by reviewing trade flows among its member states. Where India is concerned, some of our biggest deficits are with BRICS partners, and we've been pressing for expeditious solutions. We hope that this realization will be part of the takeaways from today's meeting.
Jaishankar further highlighted how the world has faced multiple crises in recent years. He said that in the face of these challenges, the multilateral system appears to be failing the world.
The world today also seeks an urgent resolution of ongoing conflicts. The global south has experienced a deterioration in its food, energy, and fertilizer security. Where shipping is targeted, not just trade, but livelihoods also suffer. A selective protection cannot be a global answer. An early end to the hostilities and undertaking diplomacy to ensure a durable solution is the obvious pathway before us. The working of international organizations in the last few years has witnessed major shortfalls in many areas. On key issues, we have unfortunately seen that gridlocks have undermined the search for common ground. These experiences have only made the case for reformed multilateralism generally, and that of the United Nations and its Security Council specifically, more urgent. The BRICS have taken a positive view of this need for reform, and we expect that it would collectively become a strong voice for much awaited change.
2 terrorists and 2 army soldiers were killed in a fierce encounter in South Kashmir's Kulgam district. 3 army personnel were injured in this operation. 2 of them later succumbed to their injuries at the hospital. According to officials, the gunfight began after a joint team of the police, the Army's 9RR and the CRPF launched a search operation in the area following specific inputs about the presence of terrorists. As the joint team closed in on the suspected spot, the hiding terrorists opened fire. Security forces retaliated, triggering the encounter. The official said that the exchange of fire was still underway when reports last came in, while additional reinforcements have been rushed to the area. 2 to 3 terrorists are still believed to be trapped. The encounter is currently still ongoing. In Bengaluru, a BMTC bus conductor is facing serious allegations after a shocking incident on a bus travelling from Devanahalli to Majestic. A passenger, reportedly a non-Kannada speaker, had boarded at Devanahalli and later realized that he had forgotten to take his ticket. During a routine check, both he and the conductor were fined. However, what followed was sparking public outrage. According to viral videos and photos circulating on social media, the conductor allegedly abused the passenger using derogatory language and even attempted to hit him on the head. The bus, with registration number KA57F4029, quickly turned into a scene of chaos, with co-passengers stepping in and expressing anger over the conductor's behavior. Eyewitnesses questioned why a physical assault was necessary, especially over a mere 5 rupee ticket, calling the incident unacceptable. BMTC is yet to issue an official statement.
पुलिस स्टेशन ये तो प्रॉब्लम क्या हो गया काड़ा बस इसके साथ बात करने नहीं चलो पुलिस स्टेशन चलो मैं रिकॉर्ड कर रहा हूं चलो पुलिस स्टेशन क्या हो गया ये तो प्रॉब्लम क्या हो गया काड़ा बस इसके साथ बात करने नहीं चलो पुलिस स्टेशन चलो मैं रिकॉर्ड कर रहा हूं चलो पुलिस स्टेशन क्या हो गया ये तो प्रॉब्लम क्या हो गया काड़ा बस इसके साथ बात करने नहीं चलो पुलिस स्टेशन.
At least 6 people have been murdered in a terror attack in Jerusalem, which has left another 15 injured. 2 Palestinian gunmen opened fire at a bus stop on the outskirts of Jerusalem, killing 6 people in what police described as a terrorist attack, one of the deadliest in the city in the past few years. Footage from a dashboard camera at the scene showed people fleeing from the vicinity of a bus stopped by the side of a road as shots rang out. Another video showed a bus's windscreen and windows pierced with bullet holes. The ambulance service identified 5 of the victims as a 50-year-old man, a woman in her 50s and 3 men in their 30s. It said 11 other people had suffered injuries, including 6 who were in a serious condition with gunshot wounds. Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Saar said that a 6th person had died as well and that the gunmen were Palestinians from the Israeli-occupied West Bank. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel is engaged in pursuit and it has cordoned off the villages from where the murderers came.
Currently, I'm here at the Tel Aviv, Israel. A new terror attack has taken place in Israel just before the Israeli New Year and close to the 2nd anniversary of the October 7th attack. The incident has deeply shocked the people of Israel The attackers have been identified as Mohammed Taha and Amor, both residents of Ram Allah area, with no prior arrests according to Israeli police. Israeli authorities reported that the attack followed an accident and a traffic pileup. During the traffic jam, two shooters opened fire on the public buses that were stuck in the traffic jam. The attack occurred in the remote area in Jerusalem. This incident comes nearly 2 years after the similar attack that took place in the city in 2023. In this attack, around 6 civilians have lost their lives and 22 more have injured seriously and currently taking treatment at the Jerusalem hospital. Yesterday we also had a word with the Director General of Israel, where he also clearly stated that Israel is looking forward to save the civilians' life. So right after, it's not even 24 hours since he said that, and we are witnessing a shocking attack. So how is this going to affect the Israel and Gaza?
So the Director General's word, I think we're expressing the Israeli sentiment of always trying to save lives and trying to protect lives, even when we have to go into combat. This is exactly the opposite of our enemies, who are looking to hurt and kill us, while Israel is trying to protect its own civilians and trying as much as it can not to hurt civilians on the other side. The Palestinians and the Palestinian terrorists are trying and aiming to hurt civilians. So unfortunately, this is what we're witnessing, and again, it's like we saw in on October 7th from Gaza, people who a horrible terrorist group that attacked and came into Israel. We're seeing these attacks happening on smaller scale now, coming from near Ramallah today. The terrorists were. So something is wrong with the education, with the indoctrination of children from a very early age. They're incited to want to kill rather than to look for peace. And this is the result that we're seeing now. In order to have change, there has to be a change in education, there has to be a change in attitude from a very early age. They have to want to seek peace, they want to protect life and have respect for life, both their own and ours. And when that happens, then peace can prevail.
Israel has issued a stark warning to Hamas, threatening to unleash what it calls a quote-unquote mighty hurricane of airstrikes on Gaza. This report tells you more.
As another high-rise building was bombed to rubble in Gaza City on Monday, Israel said it would step up airstrikes on Gaza in a, quote, mighty hurricane. It says it is a last warning to Hamas that it will destroy the enclave unless fighters agreed to free all hostages and surrender. Israeli military bombed a 12-floor block in the middle of Gaza City, where dozens of displaced families had been housed. Those living inside and in tents in the surrounding area were given 3 hours' notice to leave. In a statement, the military said Hamas fighters have been operating near the building. Monday's death toll has climbed to at least 40. Palestinians bid farewell to loved ones, including children killed in Israeli attacks. Where do we go? This woman asks. We don't have money to move, nor do we have money to get a tent. What is the fault of all these children to die? Israel launched a major assault last month on Gaza City, where hundreds of thousands of residents are living in ruins. Hamas said it was studying the latest US ceasefire proposal that President Donald Trump said was the militant group's last chance. A senior Israeli official says the latest proposal calls for Hamas to return all 48 remaining living and dead hostages on the first day of a ceasefire, during which negotiations would be held to end the war. Hamas has long said it intends to hold on to some hostages until negotiations are complete. It said it was committed to releasing them all with a clear announcement of an end to the war and the withdrawal of Israeli forces.
And with that, it's a wrap here from my side. Thank you so much for watching. This is Krishna Kumar signing off.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News 9. English news as it should be.
Associate sponsor Anchor Toothpaste, नए जमाने की नई सुरक्षा.
Beautiful.
18th century और अभी तक चल रही है.
ज्यादा नहीं चलेगी। कुछ कहा? प्रोमिनेंस नहीं, प्रोमिनेंस। वाओ, ओरिजिनल।
या स्पेन से लाए थे।
वहीं छोड़ाते। प्रोमिनेंस नहीं है ना?
प्रोमिनेंस?
मैं कहना चाह रहा था कि प्रोमिनेंस नहीं है। प्रोमिनेंस मतलब प्रोमिनेंस विंडोज, इसमें है हाईएस्ट वेदर रेजिस्टेंस और घर को रखे सेफ फ्रॉम टर्माइट, सीपेज, डस्ट एंड नॉइज। प्रोमिनेंस फॉर द वर्ल्ड यू डिजर्व।
That goat is long dead, but Cyrus Bhai are still alive. Game Cho. This is God's office calling. You're not a VIP, so God won't speak directly, but here's the deal. You have been granted a second chance with a brand new news show.
Thank you very much. Just one thing. You said 2 lives, 2 more lives. So I'll first be a newsman who wins awards, and second I'll be
Cockroach.
better make this show last. No hurry to, be a cockroach. Let's stay here for a little while. Don't want to be a cockroach. Apparently, they have lots of issues, like being stamped upon. This is the same thing as a newsman. I mean, they're not that different.
बेस्ट है सर। पर नया क्यों? सर इसमें
आर्किटेक्ट जी, समथिंग स्पेशल फॉर यू। नया बिरला ओपस पेंट्स देने के लिए।
ऐसा क्या है इसमें?
इसमें है एडवांस क्वालिटी, ऊपर से बिरला ओपस अश्योरेंस एक्स्ट्रा। 1 साल में पेंट को कुछ भी हुआ तो पेंटिंग वापस करके देंगे।
वापस करके देंगे?
वापस करके देंगे।
वापस करके देंगे?
वापस करके देंगे।
वापस करके देंगे।
वो भी फ्री। आर्किटेक्ट जी।
यस मैम।
समो क्वालिटी पे इतना कॉन्फिडेंस, इसीलिए बिरला ओपस अश्योरेंस। 1 साल में पेंट को कुछ भी हुआ तो पेंटिंग वापस करके देंगे। रजिस्टर करो birlaopus.com पर।
A small window of hope has opened for Nimisha Priya. You know, human beings live by hope. Is Vijay challenging Dravidian party? Payments have been made, but no books inside. If there is corruption at the BO office, maybe I want to learn Hindi, that I do not know how to speak Kannada. Go to the second part.
to have Hindi compulsion.
2 kids were asked to clean the toilet because of their caste. All these kids were forced to do it. I will clearly protest against this. 3 passes, Mr. Gowda. People rushed. I'm asking you, what makes Palani so confident? We're sitting on moral boulders. Tamil Nadu seems to have become extremely unsafe.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News 9. English news as it should be.
Hello and a very warm welcome. Thanks for tuning in to your favorite news destination. You're watching In Your Interest with me, Kabir Naqvi, and on the segment tonight, we're zeroing in on a brewing storm in the United States and India relations that's hitting where it hurts. We're talking about visas, jobs, and of course the shifting geopolitical alliances. Is Uncle Sam tightening the screws as a pressure tactic over tariffs, or is it about pulling India out of the China-Russia orbit? Well, brace for bottlenecks as the Trump administration clamps down on visa rules yet again. And let's cut straight to the chase. India, holder of the maximum H-1B visas, will feel the squeeze the hardest. Non-immigrant visa applicants, from business travelers to tech pros, must now attend interviews exclusively at one of the 5 US embassy or consulates in India. No more hopping to third countries for a quicker processing. This ends a long-standing practice that helped bypass massive backlogs, now stretching up to 9 months or more in some cases. Visa types like B1, B2 for business and tourism, H-1B for the skilled workers, we're talking about F1 for students, L1 for intra-company transfers, and O1 for extraordinary talent are all under heightened scrutiny now. Gone are the most Dropbox renewals and age-based exemptions, forcing in-person appearances even for the routinest of cases. And this comes amidst the tighter immigration rules under Donald Trump 2.0, with increased backlog disrupting business, tourism and urgent travel. The IT and outsourcing sectors, India's economic backbone, they're facing major disruptions as companies are now scrambling with the delayed talent flows and revoked approvals. Fueling the fire are recent comments from Donald Trump's administration and the heavyweights and influencers and the right-wing supporters, painting a stark anti-immigration picture, and what's more is that signaling and singling out India. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis calls the H-1B visa program a scam that displaces young Americans. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick echoes, saying hiring Americans should be the priority, and it's not just official. American right-wing influencers are also singling out Indians. Folks, there is a clear-cut paradox here. Indian origin CEOs run Google. Indian origin CEOs run Microsoft, Adobe, IBM, and nearly 10% of the Fortune 500 companies. They're driving American innovation. Well, food for thought, isn't it? Meanwhile, Indian students in the United States are particularly feeling the heat in this charged up atmosphere with rising racism on campuses and the hate campaigns online. Over 4,700 plus student visas have been revoked for issues like irregular attendance or unauthorized employment. Some could be genuine cases. Let's not say all of them are absolutely fake and are singling out Indians. But workplace inspections and raids, just like at the Hyundai crackdown, these are all red flags, especially for Indians, leading to layoffs of student workers and forcing many into shared housing amidst this financial pressures that have come about. Experts are warning that even skilled professionals, those that stay back for that opted extra studying courses, are no longer immune, with self-funded students now the most vulnerable in this uncertain future. And the big question, and we've got an informed panelist with us on tonight, the big question that we're asking today: is America weaponizing visa rules to pressure India on tariffs and foreign relations, something that we've been decoding for the longest time? And will Indian talent now look westward or pivot to new pastures like Europe, Australia, or even the East? Let's decode all of that. With us on the broadcast, Adit Kothari, foreign affairs and geopolitical expert, joining us live from London. Ravi Lotumala, career counselor and college admissions expert, joining us live from Texas, somebody who's been doing this for the better part of more than 2 decades, if I'm not wrong. Mr. Ravi, many thanks for joining us here on the broadcast. Ambassador Das Gupta is soon going to be with us, and Irina Sukerman, journalist, lawyer and foreign policy expert, joining us live from Washington, D.C. Irina, always a pleasure to have you with us on News 9. You know, Mr. Lotumala, you've been doing this for the longest time. Let me quickly get things started with you specifically. And let's talk about the student and the industry angle, because many are also saying that not all Indians go out there to study, to, upskill themselves. Many are just trying to live the American dream. Many are privileged enough to go there, somehow get a green card and then envisage a life for themselves. Not everybody is looking to make the big bucks or, are pro technicians in their respective fields. So my first question, and we've detailed all of that out in the introduction, India supplies nearly 75% of the H-1B talent. With these new restrictions of you not being able to hop to a third country just to make processing quicker, we will touch upon the tariff aspect. We will touch upon how Donald Trump has been constantly arm twisting India when it comes to the strategic ties between these two countries. But this new move, given each day we're learning new things about the visa process, how disruptive could these restrictions be specifically for the IT, for outsourcing and the startup ecosystem? And of course, talk to us from the point of view of a student as well.
So Kabir, you have brought up a very, very good issue, which is ongoing critical issues. Let me just tell you that this was expected and this came up. If you in retrospect, sitting in the United States, there was a major rehaul that was supposed to happen, and it happened only in the Trump's administration. There is a lot of cleanup that was required. A lot of cleanup required, not only at a very basic level called admissions, students, agents, universities, so many things, lot of cleanup was required. So imagine when I say cleanup was required, there was a lot of dirt piled up on this entire ecosystem. So the good were being impacted and the bad were taking the advantage of it. Good were students coming in from India into very good schools, very ranked schools, and they are studious and hardworking and experienced, and all those people were being very much impacted. And the other side of the guys were taking undue advantage, doing all unethical practices in the United States. This was haunting more. And it was haunting to such an extent that even they were displacing the local Americans who were looking for jobs. I mean, for instance, for example, a student coming from India and with 0 years of experience, when he's applying for a job, he's putting an experience of 8 to 10 years, and somebody is taking up the interviews compared to them. Whereas US kids born in US, if they have only 6 months of experience, they put only 6 months of experience. It is a very simple and easy way of filtering out all these things that were coming into the picture limelight. And that was the reason these are all the things that happened, happening for the last 4 to 5 years now. Not just 4 to 5 years now. Now, there was a research done by Alexander Fay, and then he completely discussed detailed with the data and all the things about the H-1B program, and they came up with the information that this was not used properly, but it was abused and misused, and drastically. And so this was required, and this is, trust me, and this is only a temporary things, all the things. Once the cleanup is done, again, everything comes into place, everything falls into place, and then quality students will always have a preference over the students that are not working very hard.
So what you're essentially telling us, Mr. Lothumala, is that there was actually a problem that had to be fixed. There was a problem, and I think that's a right way of putting it, that this wasn't used properly but was abused drastically. And we will stick on that because Irina Sukuman, journalist, lawyer and foreign policy expert, with us live from Washington. Irina, help the viewers understand. We will come back to the students in just a quick bit. Exercise brevity if you can. From Washington's perspective, what's really driving these new visa restrictions? Because like Mr. Ravi Lothumala pointed out, there were some problems. There was a little bit of tightening of the structure and system that was needed. But are these genuine security concerns? Or is this political signaling ahead of the midterms? Because a lot of right-wing influencers are now jumping the bandwagon, towing the Donald Trump line. Or is this pure economic protectionism, which is where the India-US ties also come into play?
Thank you for asking this question. I would say it's a mixture of all of these things. There's no doubt there is always abuse in any system, and there was worker visa fraud, there was student visa fraud. People were paying off, unqualified people from around the world were paying off to buy up visas to get into the country, and of course it was creating a backlog. But at the same time, the situation with the abuses of the working visas is more complicated than that. It is true that in some sectors there was fraud that displaced American workers, and in such cases I would certainly urge the government to investigate that fraud and use normal law enforcement mechanisms against it. But on the other hand, there are sectors of US economy that are suffering from skills gap, and keeping out qualified workers when they're in the cases where there aren't enough qualified American workers actually is a huge economic drain. It's protectionist, and it undercuts the Trump administration's goals in bringing manufacturing back to the United States. With the case of the bans on short-term visa applications from third countries, this is not simply a case of anti-Indian bias, because it is applied to other countries as well, but it may affect Indians disproportionately. So from the point of view of the US State Department, this measure is helpful because visa screening relies heavily on local vetting infrastructure and institutional memory. When applicants apply via their home country, consular officers can easily access national data on identity, criminal records, or past visa violations, so it makes the process easier for them. Also, enforcing interviews and immigration standards is becoming more feasible when they're at home. Abroad, you can have long backlogs and proliferation.
But
of
Irina,
third-country
you
appointments.
do understand why the Indian students are, they're in uncertain waters right now. Like you pointed out, it might just disproportionately affect Indians the most. And you think Howard Lutnick does not know that? Peter Navarro is oblivious to that fact? I'm sure they know about that as well.
Of course.
They do. I'm going to come back to you, Irina. I'm going to come back to you. We have Ambassador Jayant Dasgupta, who's with us on the broadcast, former ambassador to WTO. Ambassador Dasgupta, many thanks for taking out the time. Let me quickly get to you. We have been talking about the students specifically. Irina here of the opinion that this is not biased against India, but because 75% H-1Bs go to Indians, it might just disproportionately affect Indians the most. And Mr. Ravi Lothumala, who's a career counselor, he's been doing this for the longest time now, says that yes, Indians are going to get affected. People are being thrown out due to those raids and checks that are happening. Take a look at the Hyundai example very recently. Those are all red flags for our H-1B skilled workers. But is this more than that? Mr. Lothumala also says that there was actually a problem that needed fixing. So my question to you, how do you interpret Washington's latest decision to end these third country visa applications, specifically for Indians? We're looking at this from the Indian POV because does this reflect a policy shift? We've been talking about the midterm polls that are right around the corner. Is this political signaling or is this economic protectionism? Because you're specifically targeting India, or is there a broader tightening that was actually needed? Where do you stand, on the fence or either side? Ambassador, over to you.
Well, there are a few points which I would like to mention. First is that granting a visa is the prerogative of the country which is going to have the person from the other country come in.
Yep.
So it has to do a background check. It has to satisfy itself that the person, for the purpose which he has or she has mentioned in the application, will actually perform that function or carry on with that function. Now the problem is that since July 2025 and after the COVID pandemic, in fact, the US had reduced the number of people who were working in their visa section in India, and that led to very long dates for getting an interview. And now at the moment, of course, it has come down a bit, but it is still between 3.5 months to about 9 months, depending on the place where you put in your application. So that is one thing which is coming down, but very slowly. So the number of people who are screening the visas, that if that could be increased by making India making a request to the US, that is one possibility. The second point I wanted to mention is that because of the intense screening and the social media, scrutiny, etc., about 50% of the visas from Indians are getting rejected now. So that is a second thing, which I think is across the board because the US is doing it all over the world.
Okay.
The third point is that as far as students are concerned, in all the good universities of the US, the admissions close by about December and a person is notified that you are either admitted or not admitted. And in some laggard universities or other universities, it carries on till about February, at the most March. So I think if somebody has got an admission in December, he or she has time till August or, to get a visa. And he or she could have easily got it even in the present dispensation. Even for the other universities, it is possible to get it from one or the other centers in India. And the last point I wanted to mention is that it is not directed against India, but it is basically a part of President Trump's policies of restricting visas, of restricting people coming into the US so that jobs could be available, more jobs could be available to the US citizens.
I agree with you, Ambassador, but doesn't the Trump administration at the same point in time know that 75% of the H-1Bs go to the Indians? I mean, this year itself, the intake has been horrible and we're still looking at 3.31 lakh Indian students in the United States.
Well, H-1B visa is a different cup of tea from the number of students in the US, because they would be going either under an F visa or an M visa. F visa for a full-time enrollment in a university, and M visa for a vocational course, etc. And H-1B is something which is given, and the quota is 65,000 per annum, and another 20,000 additional for a person having a master's degree or higher degree from a US university. So overall it is 85,000 visas per annum, and people who have already gone to the US earlier under an H-1B visa, if they want an extension after 3 years, their numbers are not counted in this 85,000. So out of this 85,000, 75%, I don't know whether that is correct or not, but it is true that more than 50% of the visas go to Indians.
All right. Adit Kothari, foreign affairs and geopolitical expert, joining us live from London here. Adit, what is your opinion on these new developments? And vis-a-vis, we'll also play out that graphic, because there is a strong rhetoric that is now gaining momentum coming from the right-wing influencers, people who have a lot of backing on